It is no secret that money plays a huge role in modern football. Footballers move from average clubs to top clubs not just for better sports, but also for financial causes. But as time passes, it becomes obvious that some players get their wages not as much for their professional qualities, but mostly thanks to fortunate circumstances. There are many such examples in modern football, unfortunately. Goal 24 is going to tell you about 10 footballers that undeservedly get huge salaries. But before we start, answer our traditional quiz. Which footballer earns more in his club? Reece James, Rafael Leao, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes. Leave your answers in the comments. And now we begin. Jesse Lingard, 11,775,000 euros per year. The Englishman left Manchester United this summer and signed for a Premier League newcomer side Nottingham Forest on a free transfer. The Tricky Trees received huge financial support from the board and spent 162 million euros on transfers, becoming the 5th club in the world by expenditures on the transfer market. Lingard joined the club for free, and because the midfielder's status in the game was higher than most of his teammates, as expected, he received a solid wage. Jesse was expected to play like he did during his loan spell at West Ham in the second half of the 2021 season. Just to remind you, that period was the most productive in Lingard's career, as he scored 9 goals and made 4 assists in 16 Premier League matches. Unfortunately for Nottingham Forest, the Englishman is miles away from his fiery form and plays just like in the worst times at Manchester United. As for this moment, Jesse has played 14 matches in the Premier League without a single goal contribution. Probably the crisis and rebuilding of the team had their impact too, as more than 20 newcomers joined the team in summer. Nottingham has just recently climbed out of the relegation zone, but it is still unclear for how long they can stay out of danger. Such conditions make it hard for any footballer to adapt. But with all the high hopes, Lingard could have made a little better. Jesse's performances were so awful that only a couple of months after his move to Nottingham, rumors spread out about the board willing to get rid of the 30-year-old winger. However, the player still has half a year on his contract left, so the Reds won't have to bear with him that long. Saul Niguez, 12 million euros per year. In the mid-2010s, the Spaniard was considered one of the most promising midfielders in the world. Many of you may remember his solo run and the goal against Bayern in the 15-16 Champions League semi-final. This impressed Bayern's then-coach Josep Guardiola so much that he tried to sign the player as soon as he moved to Manchester City. But Atletico refused to sell one of their key players, and as a result, Saul stopped developing. Diego Simeone's system was struck by a crisis, and this was not in favor of Niguez for sure. This all eventually resulted in Atletico trying to get rid of a useless midfielder by summer 2021. Chelsea believed that the Spaniard's career might be revived and loaned him for a year. Thomas Tuchel was the manager at the time. He trusted Niguez a place in the squad, but after his repeated failures, the player was sent to the reserves as deep as possible. Chelsea didn't use the buyout clause of 40 million euros at the end of the season. The player had to return to Atletico, having scored only 1 goal in the FA Cup and with the Club World Cup trophy under his belt. This season, Niguez is not a solid first 11 player for Colchoneros, but still he plays quite often. But is his contribution equal to his salary? That's a big question. Saul's contract lasts until 2026, so Diego Simeone and his team will have to suffer a lot because of Niguez. Chelsea, Kalidou Koulibaly, 17 million per year. Raheem Sterling, 19 million per year. This summer, the Blues were forced to find replacements for defenders Andreas Christensen and Antonio Rudiger, who had left the club. There were many candidates on the list, but eventually the board stopped on Koulibaly, who was determined to leave Napoli. Despite his age of 31, the Senegalese was considered one of the best defenders in Serie A. Chelsea paid €38 million for the transfer, as well as offered a lucrative financial deal to the player. At Napoli, his wage was €11 million per year. At Stamford Bridge, Kalidou was offered €6 million more. This looked like a quite strange decision by the board, especially taking the player's age into account and his lack of experience in the Premier League. However, had Kalidou met the expectations, the supporters would have closed their eyes to the huge salary. But he proved to be quite an unreliable player. After a very solid match, Kalidou may play a very sloppy game which is not worth €17 million. On the other hand, Chelsea have found themselves in a crisis, and many players, besides Koulibaly, have gotten into similar situations. One of such players is another newcomer, Raheem Sterling. Last season, his playing time at Man City has dramatically decreased, so the winger decided to change clubs. Chelsea won the battle for the player, paying €56,200,000 for him. At Manchester City, Raheem was the second highest paid player after Kevin De Bruyne, but moving to Stamford Bridge, he also managed to climb the top of the wage list of Chelsea. Also, his salary was increased by €1.5 million more than he had been earning at City. One may say that such a player deserves a high salary, and the board thought that Raheem would help the team attack and bring Chelsea back to the top of the Premier League. Sterling started well enough, having scored 2 goals and making 1 assist in the first 5 matches. But the winger soon faced a serious crisis and the anger of the supporters. Today, he's very far from being a leader in the Chelsea attack. When he just arrived, pundits thought he was far better than his competitors in the squad, but now Sterling cannot be distinguished from others. Also, the injury he got in the match against City made things even worse, and it's not clear when he will make it back on the pitch. Jack Grealish, €17,660,000 per year. Niklas Zule, €18,870,000 per year. In summer 2021, Manchester City updated the Premier League transfer fee record, paying Aston Villa €117,500,000 for a talented winger, Jack Grealish. The footballer was one of the best dribblers in the league and also possessed great cutting passes, which made Josep Guardiola turn his attention to the player. But it's been already 1.5 years since he joined the club, but Jack is still to meet the expectations. In his first 60 matches for the Citizens, the Englishman scored only 7 goals and made 7 assists. This is obviously not what the board was expecting, paying such a huge sum to Aston Villa. Interestingly, at Manchester City, Grealish earns €11 million more than at his former club. Only Kevin De Bruyne gets a higher wage, but unlike the Belgian, Jack does not meet the star status, to say the least. But to be frank, Jack is not playing that bad for the Citizens, and we can't say he's out of the game when on the pitch. But the thing is that his contribution is definitely not equal to his wage, let alone the transfer sum. Now about Zule. At the end of the previous season, the German didn't extend his contract with Bayern and moved to Borussia Dortmund as a free agent. Die Roten were eager to extend Niklas' contract, but the player was not content with his role as a sub. Also, the wage he was offered at Signal Iduna Park had its impact. In Bayern, he earned €7 million a year, and the BVB now pay him 12 million more. It's not that difficult to guess that he became the highest paid player in a club of Borussia's stature. But at his new club, Zule failed to become the cornerstone of the defense. Despite a goal and 2 assists for his name, the player's game in the defense cannot be called reliable. At the moment of this video, Borussia is the 6th in the Bundesliga, having conceded 21 goals, more than any of the other top 7 teams. Niklas was expected to bring maturity and experience to the defense, but for now, he's not meeting those expectations. By the way, Niklas was a first-choice defender for the Germany national team in Qatar. As a result, they conceded 5 goals in 3 group stage matches and were kicked out before the playoff. Former Real Madrid midfielder Rafael van der Vaart especially didn't like Zule's game, who was wondering why he had been chosen as a first 11 defender. Germany have a problem in defense. Niklas Süle is not world class. He is the German Harry Maguire. Leroy Sané, 20 million per year. Pundits have been predicting a bright future for the Bayern's winger for a very long time already. The footballer is 27 now, and it's very hard to call him a superstar. From 2016 to 2020, the German had quite a successful spell at Manchester City, where he won 2 Premier League titles. Sané moved to Bayern after a very serious injury, which made him miss 7 months. In spite of this, Die Roten offered him 15 million euros more than he had been earning at Etihad yearly. In Munich, everybody was confident that Sané deserved such a wage, as they saw an incredible potential in the player. Unfortunately, it's been 2.5 seasons already, and Sané still can't meet expectations. During this time, he's played 108 matches for Bayern, scoring 34 goals and making 33 assists. Now the word starts, of course, but hardly good for a player who earns 20 million per year. Hardly a serious injury he had got at Manchester City has affected the footballer's career, because from time to time he shows brilliant game for Bayern. The problem is that the player lacks stability. Sané's contract ends in summer 2025. If the German doesn't find his best form in the near future, he would have to forget about the high salary in case he stays at the club. Yeah, and by that time, he'll be 29 already. PSG, Mauro Icardi, 14,550,000 per year. Keylor Navas, 16,360,000 per year. Sergio Ramos, 27 million per year. This summer, the Parisians managed to get rid of several footballers who did nothing at the team but earned quite a big salary. One of such players was Icardi, who stopped being useful for the team and got benched. To be more precise, the club got rid of the Argentine temporarily and not on the best conditions. Though he was loaned out to Galatasaray, the Turkish club pays him only 11.1% from his overall salary. Roughly speaking, the French club transfers millions to Mauro in vain. In summer, PSG tried to sell the player, but the forward is not stupid, as he understood that he would lose a lot of money and that no club in the world would be willing to pay him such a salary, especially in his current form. Also his wife, and at the same time his agent Wanda Nara, had her impact, as lately Icardi has had problems in relations with her. Anyway, Icardi's contract ends in 2024, and the Parisians will have to work hard to get rid of the player. The second goalkeeper, Keylor Navas, completely lost his place in the first 11 in the course of the last season. The new head coach, Christophe Galtier, confirmed that Gianluigi Donnarumma is the first choice keeper for PSG. It would have been fine in case the Costa Rican didn't have an incredibly high wage. In summer, Keylor was ready to move to Napoli, but PSG did not agree to pay the compensation fee to terminate his contract, as they would have lost huge money. Sergio Ramos, who moved to Paris in summer 2021, earns almost twice as much as Icardi and Navas. Despite a series of injuries in his first season, the Spaniard got well in the second year and played 24 matches in all competitions. The 36-year-old defender is in a good shape now, but despite it is a little weird that Sergio is the highest paid player in PSG after the star trio Messi, Neymar and Mbappe, of course. Ramos will run out of contract at the end of this year, but according to rumors, the sides don't mind extending it. It will be even more weird if Sergio's wage is not decreased at least twice, considering his age and injury proneness. Manchester United, Anthony Martial, 14,719,000 per year. Jadon Sancho, 20,600,000 per year. David De Gea, 22 million per year. Erik ten Hag took charge of the Red Devils last summer. The fans were expecting to see the new coach getting rid of the unnecessary players. Anthony Martial was considered one of such players who had been so disappointing that in January 2022 was even sent to a short-term loan spell at Sevilla. When the Frenchman failed to score at least one goal in La Liga in 9 matches, the supporters were confident that in summer the Man United board will try to get rid of Antony, especially when the forward gets a huge salary without much contribution. Surprisingly, Ten Hag evaluated Martial on training sessions and decided to give him a second chance. The forward had a very good preseason with 3 goals in 4 matches, and if not for the injury he got at the start of the season, he might have started the season in the first 11. After returning to the pitch, Antony played a couple of good matches, but being loyal to himself, Martial soon lost all concentration and stability. The Frenchman has been doing better recently. He has appeared in the starting lineup in 4 matches, but despite this, Martial's performance is far from the salary he gets. The club is not eager to extend his contract, so most probably the forward will leave this summer, as otherwise the Red Devils will lose him for free. A far worse situation is with another Man United player, Jadon Sancho. Moving from Borussia, the Englishman became the 3rd record-breaking transfer in the history of the club. In Germany, the 22-year-old winger showed incredible efficiency, scoring 38 goals and making 51 assists in 104 matches in the Bundesliga. Jadon gained fame as one of the most talented footballers on the planet. That's why Manchester United decided to make him the 2nd highest paid player in the club, raising his salary 7 times. But as you might have already guessed, this doesn't help the Englishman to succeed at Old Trafford. Jason is far from the form he had at Borussia. In 1.5 seasons in the Premier League, he has scored 5 goals and made 4 assists. For comparison, in his worst season at Borussia, Sancho scored 8 goals and made 12 assists. But that's not the worst thing, as a couple of months ago, Man United manager Erik ten Hag made Jadon train individually. According to the head coach, the midfielder is not ready for a top-flight game, not physically, nor mentally. The core of the problem is not clear yet, and nobody knows when the winger will resume training with the whole team. Considering all this, it is no surprise why Sancho was not called up for the England national team for the World Cup, but he was a first-choice player for Gareth Southgate during Euro 2020. The highest-paid player at Man United is the goalkeeper, David De Gea. Erik ten Hag has already made it clear to the board that he'd like to see a new first-choice keeper in the squad who, unlike the Spaniard, is able to play with his feet and get out of the opposition's pressing. De Gea has a chance to stay at the club, but only if he agrees to a salary deduction and the role of a substitute keeper. The Red Devils are actively looking for a replacement. One of possible candidates is Diogo Costa from Porto. Also, 34-year-old Jan Sommer's name was on the list, but the Swiss keeper has already moved to Bayern. Actually, De Gea can be confidently named as the best Man United player of the mid-2010s, but frankly speaking, his level has been dubious recently. The footballer didn't even make it to the national team squad for the World Cup, losing competition to keepers from more modest Premier League clubs. Let alone a couple of costly mistakes that David made in the beginning of the season that cost the team a few important points. Eden Hazard, 31,250,000 per year. In summer 2019, Real Madrid paid 115 million euros for one of the best Premier League players, making the Belgian the most expensive transfer in the club's history. Besides, the board did not spare money for Eden's cosmic salary, which made him one of the highest-paid players in the club. When Gareth Bale left the club this summer, Hazard became the only player in the club to get such a high wage. The most ridiculous part of the deal is that this season the midfielder has only played 98 minutes in La Liga. Hazard's biggest problem at Santiago Bernabeu have been his injuries. In his first season at Real Madrid, the Belgian missed more matches than in 7 years at Chelsea. In the last half a year, Eden's health has been fine, but still, he is unable to find his best form. In his last interview, Hazard did not rule out the possibility of leaving Real Madrid by the end of this season. His contract is expiring in summer 2025, That's why Real Madrid would benefit if they sold him now or terminate his contract, not to lose another 31 million euros. Barcelona. Jordi Alba, 20,830,000 per year. Sergio Busquets, 37 million per year. Frankie de Jong, 37,500,000 per year. At the beginning of the season, Gerard Piqué was the highest paid player at Barcelona. But before the World Cup, he decided to retire and help his team to deal with financial problems. But besides Piqué, there are still plenty of players at Barca who get extremely high wages. One of such players is left-back Jordi Alba. The footballer gets a huge yearly salary but almost doesn't play, losing competition to newcomer Marcos Alonso and youngster Alejandro Balde. In summer, the board tried to sell the 33-year-old player, but it appeared to be a difficult task because Jordi had no desire to leave the club. Probably at the end of the season, Jordi will have pity on the board and agrees to leave to the MLS, for example, where many clubs are ready to offer him lucrative deals. Anyway, the fullback's contract with Barcelona expires in July 2024. Another club academy product, Sergio Busquets, has a similar situation, as he gets an unbelievable wage. But unlike Alba, the board is ready to offer the midfielder a new contract, but only if he agrees to a salary deduction. Busquets' current contract is expiring this season. The footballer is thinking about leaving to the MLS as a free agent, but the club boasts hope to persuade Sergio to stay. However, even if Busquets used to be an extraordinary midfielder, right now his level is far from 37 million per year. Otherwise, Barca fans would not be dreaming of his prompt departure. Another Blaugrana midfielder, Frankie de Jong, earns 500,000 euros more than Sergio Busquets. The Dutchman became a real pain in the ass for the Barca president Joan Laporta last season. Considering his huge salary, and the fact that Chelsea and Man United were ready to pay 90 million euros for the player, the boss was happy to personally deliver him to England. However, the footballer refused to move at any cost, as he was happy at Camp Nou. The board was furious with Frankie's behavior, making him either leave or resign the contract with a lower salary. The club supporters started abusing Frankie in the streets because of this. But despite the pressure from every corner, De Jong managed to stay. It's been half a year already, and the club's attitude towards the Dutchman has changed. Now they are ready to let him stay with his current salary, as they see him as a replacement for Sergio Busquets, who most likely will leave the club at the end of the season. Because of the Spaniard, De Jong was unable to play in his favorite position of a deep-lying playmaker. That's why the supporters couldn't see the qualities he had shown in Ajax. Maybe this role will help Frankie to increase his effectiveness, but 37.5 million euros is still an exaggerated wage for a player of his caliber. Superstars are the ones to usually get such money, but surely not the footballers who haven't reached anything serious yet. Cristiano Ronaldo, 200 million euros per year. After leaving Manchester United as a free agent, the Portuguese was trying to find an option in Europe to get a chance to play in the Champions League. Unfortunately, the 5-time Ballon d'Or winner did not find a suitable club and decided to choose money instead, moving to Al Nassr from Saudi Arabia. Local sheikhs offered Ronaldo such a huge salary that today Cristiano is considered the highest paid athlete in the world. The footballer will be earning his money not only for playing football, but also for taking part in advertising campaigns that have been negotiated with the board. Despite the fact that the 37-year-old Portuguese scored 18 goals in the Premier League last season, considering his age and the competition he'll be playing in, the 200 million euro salary per year can hardly be called reasonable. Such conditions can only be justified by marketing and popularization of football in Saudi Arabia. After all, Ronaldo is one of the most famous people in the world. Just look at the number of his followers in the Instagram. Unfortunately, salary does not always depict the level of a player's contribution in the success of his team. Huge wages and concentration on money may turn heads and ruin a career. So it's no wonder why those players that focus on their development rather than finances reach better results. Dear friends, Which player's salary do you consider the most unfair? Let us know your opinion in the comments. We'll make sure to read them. See you soon.